There's a strange kind of relationship quietly destroying your life, and chances are, you haven't even realized it yet. It's that subtle exhaustion you feel right after talking to someone you deeply care about. It's the mysterious heaviness in your chest when certain names pop up on your phone. You call it compassion, loyalty, even love. But have you ever stopped to wonder why caring for someone feels like losing yourself piece by piece? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The more sensitive and empathetic you are, the easier it becomes for others to unconsciously drain you, using your kindness as their life support. You think you're offering comfort and understanding, yet secretly you're becoming a silent fuel source for someone else's unresolved emotional turmoil. Your gift of empathy has turned you into their emotional caregiver, but at what cost? Pause right here and be brutally honest with yourself. Is your exhaustion really from work, obligations, or life's general pressures? Or is it actually coming from those relationships you cherish most? Have you mistaken being needed for being valued, losing yourself to others because you're terrified of standing alone? Carl Jung once quietly revealed something profound we rarely want to face. We unconsciously choose relationships that replay our deepest emotional wounds, turning our hearts into battlegrounds where we continuously fight for validation and belonging. Without noticing, you've become trapped in a cycle, endlessly giving because deep inside you believe it's the only way to feel worthy. But why do we cling to relationships that silently consume us? How can we finally recognize and break free from these hidden emotional traps before it's too late? Stay with me, because what Carl Jung discovered can help you reclaim your strength, your peace, and ultimately your truest self. Emma was always the friend everyone relied on, the calm voice in a storm, the steady shoulder available at any moment. Whenever someone faced heartbreak, stress, or uncertainty, Emma was their first call, the compassionate listener who absorbed every word. But lately, something had changed. Each time Emma left her friends, instead of feeling fulfilled, she felt utterly drained, strangely empty, even confused. One evening, sitting alone in her parked car, she stared quietly at her reflection in the rearview mirror, a heavy silence filling the air. "Why?" she whispered to herself. "Am I always ready to listen to everyone else's problems, yet nobody ever bothers to ask if I'm really okay?" Emma's question wasn't just her own. It's the quiet cry of countless sensitive souls who, without realizing, have turned their extraordinary empathy into a hidden form of self-sacrifice. At the very heart of this lies a profound yet rarely admitted psychological truth. Empaths unconsciously believe their value is measured by how much they're needed. They see their kindness and emotional availability as currency to earn love, acceptance, and validation. Failing to realize this habit subtly erodes their own inner peace and well-being. Picture yourself like a glass, constantly filled with water, but never able to stay full. Each time you offer your emotional support, you're pouring yourself into someone else's cup. But when does your cup get replenished? The tragedy for empaths is that they rarely pause to notice this imbalance, too busy validating their self-worth through being indispensable to others. They mistake exhaustion for generosity and burnout for proof they're doing enough. Ask yourself honestly right now, have you ever compromised your inner peace just to feel valued by others? Have you unknowingly traded your emotional well-being simply for the fleeting assurance that someone needs you? If you look closely, you'll start seeing signs everywhere, subtle yet consistent ways your energy is quietly depleted. It's that friend who repeatedly calls you with crises, monopolizing your time without truly resolving their issues. It's the long, emotionally draining phone calls that leave you empty, depleted, and unable to focus afterward. It feels like endlessly charging a phone battery that never stays full no matter how long it's plugged in. Have you ever wondered why those interactions always leave you feeling empty? Why is it that after certain conversations, You have no energy left, even though the other person seems relieved. These subtle, everyday moments are red flags, indications of a deeper dynamic you might not yet recognize. Those who unknowingly drain your emotional resources often appear innocent, disguised as loved ones or close friends who genuinely seem to need your help. But beneath the surface, they're continuously siphoning off your energy, not intentionally, but because they've come to rely on you as their emotional life support. Recognizing this dynamic is crucial. Without clarity, you'll remain trapped in the draining cycle, endlessly trying to save others while slowly losing yourself. But what happens if you don't recognize this pattern early enough? The consequences are far deeper and more devastating than you might initially think. Like a phone constantly running on low battery, you start to lose your capacity to function effectively. Tasks that once brought joy become meaningless chores. Relationships that once felt supportive begin to feel heavy, burdensome, even toxic. Gradually, the passion and inspiration you once had for life fade into emotional exhaustion, apathy, and quiet despair. You risk slipping into a state of emotional burnout, where you're physically present but emotionally and spiritually absent. Have you felt this way lately? A gradual loss of interest in things you once enjoyed, an unexplained sense of detachment or numbness that you can't quite articulate? These aren't random feelings. They're signals your body and soul send when your emotional resources are critically low. When empathy becomes compulsive caregiving, you unconsciously sacrifice your own vitality, losing sight of who you are and what truly matters to you. But here's the deeper, surprising truth. You can't rescue anyone by letting them drain your life force. Love doesn't require self-sacrifice, and compassion doesn't demand that you diminish yourself. How can you genuinely help others if you're continually empty, depleted, and burned out? The hard but necessary truth is that self-sacrifice never truly serves anyone, not the person you're trying to save, and certainly not you. When you constantly put others' emotional needs ahead of your own, you're not giving love, you're giving up yourself. And in the end, neither you nor the other person finds healing in that exchange. So ask yourself this honestly. By continuously sacrificing yourself, are you really helping anyone? Or are you unintentionally enabling their inability to face their own wounds? Does true compassion ever involve losing your own identity and inner peace in the name of someone else's emotional comfort? Yet how can you break free from this unconscious habit of emotional self-sacrifice and finally reclaim your precious, finite energy? Here's the painful yet liberating truth you might have been avoiding your entire life. You cannot truly save someone by letting them drain you of your life's energy. What you've mistaken for love or compassion may, in fact, be your way of running from the difficult, uncomfortable task of facing yourself. You become so accustomed to pouring your inner fire into others, believing it noble, generous, even heroic, but deep down, you sense something is terribly wrong. Something inside whispers softly, how can it be love if it slowly destroys you? Imagine yourself as a candle in a dark room. Day after day, you willingly offer your flame, lighting the way for everyone else. But while you illuminate their paths, your own flame slowly dwindles, flickering weakly, barely able to sustain itself. You wonder why your days feel empty, why your nights are filled with quiet sadness, exhaustion, and confusion. Because the candle you are, the beacon meant to guide you toward your own truth, has nearly extinguished itself to keep others warm. Can you genuinely call that compassion? Is true love supposed to feel like slowly disappearing? Pause right now and ask yourself the hardest question of all. Are you sacrificing your inner peace, your dreams, even your identity, simply because you're terrified that if you stop giving, if you dare to set boundaries, people might abandon you? Are you afraid that if you finally say no, you'll suddenly find yourself alone, rejected, and unworthy? Deep down, are you using emotional sacrifice not as an act of kindness, but as an armor against loneliness, against the profound, unsettling fear of being unloved? What if the constant emotional caregiving isn't genuinely about them at all, but about you and your unspoken need to be needed, to matter, to belong somewhere, to someone? This realization isn't meant to condemn you. It's here to free you. Recognizing this unconscious motivation is your first courageous step toward genuine healing. Because the truth is, true love never requires you to diminish your own inner flame. Real compassion isn't measured by how much you can silently endure or how endlessly you give. It's about being strong enough to know when your generosity has become self-destruction. Reflect for a moment. Have you ever genuinely healed someone by sacrificing your happiness and peace? Have your endless efforts and emotional labor ever truly resolved someone else's unresolved wounds? Or have they merely enabled their avoidance, keeping both of you trapped in an unspoken, destructive cycle? Look closely at your relationships. Do those you've endlessly supported ever truly change? Or do they simply return again and again, continuously draining your precious life force, leaving both parties stuck in an unhealthy dynamic of dependence and emotional burnout? What if the hardest truth to accept is that some people simply aren't ready to face their shadows yet? No amount of your energy, love, or self-sacrifice can force someone to heal before they're willing. And even more painfully, perhaps your constant availability is unintentionally preventing them from doing their own inner work, robbing them of the very growth they desperately need. Have you unknowingly become their emotional crutch rather than their catalyst for true transformation? Think back to that image of yourself as the candle. Every time you let someone consume your flame without boundaries, you weaken not only yourself, but their capacity for growth. Your well-intentioned sacrifice unintentionally creates a dependency, keeping them locked in emotional immaturity and yourself trapped in emotional exhaustion. Ultimately, nobody heals, nobody grows, and both flames remain dimmed. But imagine what could happen if you finally made a different choice. Imagine the strength you'd feel if you reclaimed your flame, your boundaries, your truth. What if you started allowing yourself to burn brightly, not just for others, but for you, honoring your own emotional and spiritual integrity? How would your relationships transform if you gently yet firmly began teaching others how to respect your energy and your worth? Yes, setting boundaries might initially feel terrifying. You might worry about disappointing others or being perceived as selfish, cold, or uncaring. But consider this. Genuine love and compassion always start from a place of self-respect and inner strength. Your boundaries don't mean you love less. They mean you love wisely. They signify your willingness to teach others how to treat you, setting an example for healthy, balanced relationships built on mutual respect, understanding, and emotional maturity. What might life look like if you no longer lived in constant fear of being abandoned for simply protecting your own heart? How much richer, deeper, and more authentic would your connections become if you showed up fully without sacrificing your essence? Imagine relationships filled not with obligation and silent resentment, but with genuine reciprocity, mutual care, and shared growth. Isn't this the kind of love and connection you've always quietly hoped for? So, what if the bravest, most loving action you could take today is to finally stop pouring your precious flame into those who refuse to kindle their own? What if, instead, you chose to use your light to illuminate your own path first, allowing others to follow your example rather than feeding off your strength? What would happen if, for once, you prioritized your inner peace and emotional health, trusting that your genuine well-being would naturally inspire others to find their own light? The real question now becomes clear, piercing through all doubts and hesitations. What if you dared to stop being everyone else's source of light and began finally courageously to rekindle and protect your own? Perhaps the greatest journey of an empath isn't learning how to love and heal others. It's discovering how to truly love, protect, and honor your own precious sensitivity. Your gift of empathy was never meant to become a weapon turned against yourself. It was always meant to be a sacred guide, helping you navigate life with depth, authenticity, and purpose. Yet somewhere along the way, you unknowingly allowed others to borrow your light until you nearly lost sight of your own. Today can be different. Today can mark the moment you finally choose to embrace yourself fully, no longer measuring your worth by how much emotional weight you carry for others. Imagine the peace you'd feel if your generosity came from a place of strength rather than depletion. If your kindness was no longer a silent cry for acceptance, but a confident expression of your inner truth. What if setting boundaries was not abandonment, but the highest form of self-respect and self-love you could ever show? What if refusing to let others drain your energy isn't selfishness at all, but a powerful declaration of your worth, your wisdom, and your growth? This moment of awakening holds immense power. By reclaiming your energy, you begin to illuminate a new path, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. You show others that true compassion starts within, rooted deeply in a foundation of self-care and emotional clarity. You become a living example that loving yourself fiercely isn't an act of isolation, but one of profound healing and empowerment. Remember, you deserve relationships where your energy is honored, not consumed. You deserve connections where mutual respect, understanding, and genuine care flow both ways. Above all, you deserve to rediscover the joy, freedom, and peace that come from protecting your sensitive heart without guilt or fear. If something within you resonated deeply today, if you recognized yourself even briefly in Emma's story or the insights we explored, I invite you to take one simple, powerful step forward. Comment, "I understand," below. Let this quiet declaration mark your willingness to begin this beautiful, transformative journey back toward yourself, protecting and nurturing your most precious gift, your energy, your heart, and your sensitive soul.